Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the blackbraziltoday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So today, I want to talk about a post that a man in the city of Belo Horizonte, which is located in it's the capital city of the state of Minas Gerais. Um, And it's a story that, he posted on his Instagram and it was picked up by a couple of online platforms. And so every time a story like this pops up, it's just more proof of what I've said. Some years ago, I did a story that said that Brazil has a certain nostalgia for the slavery era. Okay. And whenever I see something like this, it just provides more proof. I mean, of all the things that people could say, why do they consistently want to compare Black people to slaves? So today's video is called You Have a Beautiful Smile. If you were a slave, you'd be very expensive. A man files a complaint over a comment he received from another man, but police see no problem with the comment. So before I get into this story for today, make sure you like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, click on the notification bell, and definitely want to get a discussion going. I want to know what you all feel about this. Maybe you didn't see anything wrong with what was said. So let's just talk about this, okay? So this is the man. Now, before I get into this video, I want to ask you guys, does this guy look like anybody that you're familiar with? I tend to look at not only just Black Brazilians, I'll see white Brazilians as well, but does this guy look like anybody that you might know or somebody famous that he reminds you of? I mean, it could be just me. I showed this picture to a couple of people at work yesterday, and one person saw one person, the other person saw another person, and the second person saw who I saw. So maybe it's just me. When you watch the video, you tell me what do you think or who he might remind you of a little bit. So anyway, what I want to talk about. First thing, again, I'm always having to bring up Brazil's history of slavery that lasted about 350 years or so. Brazil was the last country in the Americas to abolish the institution of slavery. Brazil was the recipient of the most enslaved Africans in the Americas, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, which I've thrown out this stat numerous times. But I also want to point out the indelible imprint of slavery on Brazilian society. It's like people are accustomed to Black people working for them. I mean, to the point that today you have a serious problem in Brazil where people are consistently being freed from conditions that are analogous to slavery. Here in 2024, 2023, I said before, I could do a blog just on that. So thus, the image of Afro-Brazilians as slaves remains in the psyche of the entire nation. How much proof do we need? I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time because this is a topic that I always talk about. You can go back and check out some other videos where I've approached this topic, but just so you can see, talking about the number of slaves. Of the 12 million enslaved Africans brought to the New World, almost half, 5.5 million, were forcibly taken to Brazil in as early as 1540 until the 1860s. My records say that, the first evidence of slavery in Brazil was like 1538, but 1540, that's pretty close. Check out this other piece right here. Brazil was heavily reliant on slave labor throughout its colonial period, importing more enslaved Africans than any other country in the world, with their forced labor being the driving force behind the country's economy, particularly in the production of sugar, gold, and later coffee. This dependence on slavery shaped Brazil's social fabric and continues to influence its racial dynamics today. That's exactly the point that I'm making. In 2024, people still associate Black Brazilians with slavery. They still associate them with, labor, people that are being owned by other people who have less value than other people. The social impact, look right here. The widespread use of slavery deeply impacted Brazilian society, contributing to a stratified racial hierarchy, which is something that I've said in numerous videos. This is taken from the Brazil Lab Princeton website. Okay. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do a pure overdub word by word, but I am going to just talk about what this young man said. So he says, your smile is so beautiful. If you were in slavery times, you'd be a very expensive slave. What was supposed to be a night of fun turned out to be a nightmare for me. That's the phrase I heard this early in the morning from a person I've never seen in my life and who I didn't know. I was completely frozen when I heard that
Se fosse na
phrase.
época da
Your
escravidão,
smile is
você
beautiful.
seria um escravo
If it
caríssimo.
were in
Ter me
slavery
sentido
times, you'd be
péssimo
a very
e
expensive
já ir
slave.
embora da balada. Quando uma
I
amiga
felt
dessa
terrible, and I was
pessoa,
about to
essa
leave the club
racista,
when
veio
a
até
friend of this
mim
person, a
para
racist, came up to me
pedir
to
desculpas.
apologize.
Trouxe o
She
amigo, e
brought
nós
her
estávamos
friend,
com
and
as
I was
testemunhas em
already with
volta.
the
E ela volta
witnesses
a
around me,
repetir.
and she said it
Eu
again,
sou
or
formado em
the person
História,
said
e
it
na
again.
época que eu estudava,
I have a
eu
degree in
aprendi na
history,
faculdade
and at the
que
time I was studying it, I
os
learned
escravos
in
que tinham os
college that the
dentes mais
slaves who had the
bonitos, eles
most
eram os
beautiful
mais
teeth, they were the
caros.
most
Por isso eu
expensive.
te falei isso como forma de
That's why I
elogio.
said it to
Não
you
pediu
as a
desculpas. A Cici
compliment,
estava indo embora
as
da
an
balada
apology.
sem
So this is
sem
how the guy
culpada.
is justifying what he
Porém,
said to
a
him.
gente
He's
abordou ele
saying
para
he
chamar a
studied
polícia
history, and he knows that
com a
back in the slave
expectativa
era,
de
the slaves that had the
uma
best
prisão em
teeth would get the
flagrante.
highest
A
prices,
polícia
right?
chegou
He continues,
e,
the
ao
racist
contar a
was leaving the
história,
club without
ele e a
any
amiga
worry,
mentiram.
but we
Falaram que não
approached him,
disseram
called the
aquilo.
police
Mas eu tinha uns
with the
6
attempt to
testemunhas
arrest
ali.
him
Ao
in
ver
the
ele mentir, eu
act.
xinguei.
The police
Branco e
arrived, and when he
branco, filha da
told them the
puta. O
story, he and
policial
his
falou que eu
friend
podia ser
lied.
acusado
They
de
said they
injúria
hadn't
racial.
said that.
Eu, que tinha
Okay.
acabado de sofrer uma
So
situação de
this
racismo,
is, again, this
poderia
is the
ser
guy. This is being
acusado por
reported. I think this
racismo
is taken
inverso.
from the
Cheguei na
Teja website.
delegacia com as 6 testemunhas,
Continuing.
alguns
But I
amigos,
had 6 witnesses there.
uma
When I
advogada
saw him lying,
impecável,
I cursed.
impecável.
Bunch
Foi
of
me
white people,
ajudar
MFs.
com a situação.
The
Chegamos na
policeman said
delegacia
that I
por
could be
volta de
charged
3
with
da manhã.
racial insult
Saímos da
or
delegacia
racial slur.
10 e 5 da manhã.
I, who had just suffered
Resumo,
racism, could be
o
charged with
sujeito
reverse racism.
racista
I went to the police station with the
não foi
6
preso,
witnesses and
foi
some
detido.
friends.
E a
An
justificativa da
impeccable
polícia
lawyer
foi
came to
que
help me
não
with the
havia
situation.
elementos
We
suficientes
arrived at the
para
police station at
justificar
around 3
a
in the
prisão em
morning. We
flagrante.
left the police station at
Sim, tínhamos
10:15 in the
6
morning.
testemunhas
In short, the
que
guy, the
presenciaram
racist,
o fato,
wasn't arrested. He was
mas,
detained, and the police's justification was that
mas
there weren't enough
não
elements to
eram provas
justify the
suficientes
arrest
que
in the
justificassem uma
act.
prisão em flagrante.
Yes, we had
Me senti
6 witnesses who
decepcionado,
witnessed it, but it wasn't enough
triste,
evidence to
chorei,
justify an arrest
foi
in the
horrível.
act. I felt disappointed,
Mas eu queria falar
sad,
uma
I
coisa.
cried. It was
Tenham uma
horrible.
rede de
But I
apoio
wanted to say something.
fortíssima do lado de
You all
vocês.
have a very strong
Tenham
support net.
advogados que
He's telling you
conheçam
all
as
need to have a
causas e
very
pautas raciais.
strong support network on
Porque
your
eu estou
side.
como
You
advogado
have lawyers who you
especialista
do know,
e ainda
racial
assim
causes and
enfrentamos
issues,
muita
because
dificuldade
I was with a
para
specialist lawyers.
poder registrar o
And
boletim de
even so, we
ocorrência
faced a lot
e
of
a
difficulty in being
descrença
able to
e o
register the police
despreparo
report,
da
and the
polícia para
disbelief
esse tipo de situação.
and
Eu
unpreparedness
estou
of the police
exausto
for this type
emocionalmente.
of
Foi uma
situation.
noite
I'm
horrível.
emotionally exhausted. It
Agora o
was a
sangue
horrible
esfriou,
night.
eu tenho
Now the blood has cooled
refletido e
down.
essa fala tem
I've
ecoado
been
na minha
reflecting,
cabeça.
and
Tem
these comments have
demonstrado o
echoed
quão
in my head and
difícil é
show
ser
how
quem
difficult it
somos
is to
e
be
pensar que eles vão fazer de
when we
tudo
are,
para
and
que
we
você
think that we'll
não
do everything
consiga
to stop
registrar
you
sua
from being able
ocorrência,
to
para
register
te
your
invalidarem o
occurrence, to
tempo
invalidate you all
inteiro,
the
para que
time, to
você
make you give
desista de
up
fazer o processo
doing
penal.
what you're
Mas não,
doing.
eu estava com uma
But
rede de
no, I had a
apoio
strong support
que eu
network
poderia ter a melhor.
that I couldn't have
E
had
eu falo
better.
com
And I'm
vocês,
talking to you.
garantam uma
Make sure
rede
you
de
have a
apoio
strong support
forte para
network. I want to
vocês.
thank you for all the
Quero
messages. I've
agradecer
received
todas
a
as
lot of
mensagens, recebi
messages. I'll
muitas
try to answer
mensagens.
them all.
Vou tentar responder
There's nothing to
todas.
talk about, people, but I just wanted to make it clear to you that racism there,
Eu tô,
uh,
assim,
but
não sei
what
nem
you,
o que falar, gente, mas eu
okay, so
queria
what
só
he's saying is
esclarecer
racism is
para
there, but
vocês
what
que o
you
racismo
can't
está
let
aí. Mas o que
pass is
não dá para
racism.
passar é o
I hope this
racismo.
person is
Eu espero
arrested,
que
and
essa pessoa seja
I'm gonna do
presa.
everything I
Eu vou
can
fazer
to
o
make him pay
possível
for
para
what
que
he
ela
did.
pague o que ela fez.
So this is what Douglas Paula said, speaking about the incident that occurred, I guess, in some club. And then the story was reported on the Noticia put at the website. Let me see, just repeating what happened. The story is by Beatriz Bruno from the Noticia put at the website. You have a beautiful smile. If you were a slave, you'd be very expensive. This was the phrase that influencer Douglas Ferreira de Paula said he heard in a nightclub located in downtown Belo Horizonte on Sunday, December the 1st. Douglas, or they will pronounce Douglas in Brazil, denounced the case on his social media profile. Douglas said he was sad and humiliated and embarrassed by the situation. The influencer filed a police report stating that the accused, Patrick da Silva Gomes, expressed the offenses and walked away. Patrick returned a few minutes later and took the opportunity to say, I have a degree in history, and I learned at the university that Black people who had the most beautiful teeth were the most expensive. What I said to you was a compliment. Witnesses around him confirmed the statement. The influencer left his account of the incident on his Instagram. When he heard what had happened, the owner of the nightclub called the military police, and Patrick was arrested. After being heard at the police station, the aggressor was released. So I haven't been able to find the actual name of this place. Okay, so it says Umida. So they're saying here they have sadness and they're, outraged by what happened. It says here Umida. Umida repudiates with vehemence any type of prejudice or discrimination. So this is the note that the place left. So obviously this happened because witnesses saw it. The person who spoke actually admitted that he said that. He was like, "No, what's the problem? I gave you a compliment." I'm not going to read the whole note from the club, but this just documents that what he said actually happened. Even after presentation of 6 witnesses at the police station, the police concluded that there was not enough evidence to justify the arrest and the act. I felt completely vulnerable, sad, humiliated, and facing a mixture of feelings that I can't even fully subscribe or describe, said Douglas. I had to call a lawyer specializing in racial issues. That's when I realized that things were starting to be handled right. And I saw that they make a lot of barriers so that the complaint continues. I was saddened by the situation and embarrassed by everything that happened, he also said. Okay, so once again, another example of how Brazilians continue to associate Black Brazilians with slavery. And for good reason. I understand this. Why do they do that? They do that because it's left an imprint on the psyche of the population that it just happens all the time. Brazil consistently still shows novellas. Novellas are one of the most popular forms of entertainment on Brazilian television. What they call novellas, we call soap operas. And when I did research over the years, I've watched numerous example. Brazil, even in the modern era, likes to show novellas that are still set in the slavery era. That's another thing that I've talked about in other videos. There's an article I have about this. In 2016, there were 2 novellas shown on the 2 biggest television networks in Brazil that were based in the slave era at the same time, 2016. People look at, when I say, I want to change what I say because I don't want this to be misinterpreted. I'm not saying people look at Black Brazilians as slaves for good reason. What I want to say is that because of how Brazil continues to use references to slavery every day, we can understand to a degree that this is embedded in the psyche. If you want to let something go, then you don't keep promoting it in the society in modern day. But we see this everywhere. We see it in the novellas. We see it there was a hotel in southern Brazil that had a theme in all of its rooms associated with slavery. We saw this woman who was a descendant of a plantation, and she opened up what they call a fazenda. She opened her former plantation as a place of tourism, and she had Black women dressed there as if they were still dressed in the slave era. We see this all the time. And when you look back at the slavery era, during the slave era in Brazil, enslaved people performed a wide variety of labor. Essentially, they did everything that the slaveholders needed done, which is the whole point here. Brazil, slavery, they depended on the slaves to do everything. And to this day, you hear from the comments from people. People still look at Black Brazilians and associate them to the slave era. There are numerous references I could use. I will only use a few this time. This is an article from 2018. Somebody asked a question: since when are Blacks people? I didn't see any slave women at your value. Photographer is a target of various racist insults through a WhatsApp application. Always amazes me because when I see the people who make such comments, it's like these people don't necessarily look white themselves. So this is a comment this guy made to this woman. Miriam Halls, 32, was slandered by a young man identified as Rafael André in the state of Mato Grosso, better known as Rafael Zé, through a WhatsApp audio message. Okay, so photographer suffers racist attack on social network and contacts the police. But look at all the insults look what she was called. She was called a mucama, like a house servant. She was called a saco de lixo, a trash bag, crioula maldita, which means damn N-word, among other innumerous insults. So obviously she took her complaint to the police. We see a lot of times in instances like this, the police just throw their hands up in the air like, nah, that's not a big deal. This is one I refer to a lot. I found this slave in the smoking area. Whoever the owner is, let me know. A student at the Getulio Vargas Foundation, FGV means the Fundação Getulio Vargas. It's a college. And this student was suspended for a racist comment and a photo the comment that he made about a Black student sitting in, an area of the college. I forgot, there was recently a judgment come down against this guy. It took several years. As I said, if this is from like 2018, 2019, I think I saw a judgment like maybe a couple of months ago. I never got around to reporting it, but this is a guy who made the comment and he was talking about this guy right here sitting in the smoking area. And this is the guy who he was commenting on. Okay. So let me see. This guy made a comment about this guy, like, whose slave is this? Come and get him. What else? Comments on social network pages show that Brazil still has a nostalgic feeling about slavery, says researcher. Yeah. One day I'm going to just have to go ahead and do a full video about this because some of the things that people talk about, and a lot of it has to do with talking about their maids, because a lot of people see that Brazilians see their maids as like modern day slaves. Some years ago, it had to been 10, 12 years ago, there was a law that had to be passed to protect the rights of what they call domesticas or empregadas, which means maids in Portuguese. So the association between maids and slavery still exists, even in with the vast majority of the maids in Brazil are still black and brown women. So there you have it. Now, maybe I'm blowing this out of proportion, but what did you think? Were you offended by, what would you have done if somebody had came up to you and said something like this? I think if it had happened in the United States, well, quite honestly, I think something else probably would have happened. And I'm going to ask you guys what you think because I know what I'm thinking. But I wanted to present this story today because, again, how many times do I have to prove this? Brazil continues to look at its black population as slaves, modern day slaves. I mean, out of all the compliments he could have given this guy, why did he have to associate him with a slave? Good question to ask. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let's get a conversation started. I want to know how you all think about this. Does this guy look like anybody to you? I mean, in the photos is one thing, but in the video, it really struck me who he kind of looked like to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but what did you see? Drop a comment in the comment section. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel. Click on the notification bell. And with that said, I'm going to end this video here and ask that you all come back. Check out the next video that I post here at Black Brazil Today.